Hello, I'm Jason Bevis, the product manager of the Security Orchestrator product at FireEye. I'm here today to talk to you about the importance of security knowledge in the course of action and playbooks within orchestration, and how not all playbooks and course of action in orchestration are the same. So today we're going to take the two examples, leveraging FireEye alerts, and explain how they are different when you add security knowledge into that course of action. So the first thing we've done is we've taken a FireEye alert here, and we have a sample course of action. In this bullet here, we're essentially ingesting the orchestration into the platform. And if you're familiar with FireEye's core alerts, there's actually 5 types of alerts. We have what we call malware objects, domain match, web infection, local infection, and a callback. And what you'll see is sometimes you'll have one playbook from a lot of orchestration solutions that may take all those alert types and action them in the same fashion. However, based on the knowledge we have of advanced attackers and of the security industry, FireEye actually recommends a playbook that may break down that into different levels and action it differently. Although we have 100+ playbooks, we tend to action things very different with the context and allow flexibility. So for example, here with the 5 type of alerts, a typical orchestration of a malware object, which is essentially a file, will take you through the malware object, do a MD5 hash, an intel lookup, and possibly do further actions or close the case. We may or may not do that with the FireEye actions, but again, that's just one example of a malware object and the standard course of action. Where it becomes important is if you do have an advanced attacker. So if we look at the different types again, and we specifically look at a callback alert. So a callback alert itself is something that goes outside of the organization and may actually trigger an advanced attacker to either download an additional payload or allow them to enter into the network and control different functions within your network. A callback alone may not be necessarily an advanced attacker. Sometimes it may be a botnet or just another payload. However, if you understand the FireEye alerts and have a security background, there are things also in the FireEye alert context that we will typically take a look at and may also signify that we have an advanced attacker in there. So there's things in the metadata of our callback alerts that help us understand that this is an advanced attacker. When you have an advanced attacker, you don't typically want to reach outside the organization, which if you look at some of these other methods, they're going to do the intel lookup to things like virus total or other external sources. For an advanced attacker, that can actually tip off the advanced attacker and may not be the best approach. In our case, we're going to take a callback alert, we're going to look at the context of it, and then typically what we may do is shift into a live response mode. What this means is we've actually now engaged evidence to start understanding the extent of that attack and what it is to make sure we really know what we're dealing with, who that attacker is, and making sure we're getting them out of the org with the appropriate course of action. So as you can see, callback is just one example where we leverage our security knowledge to actually alter the course of action and give you the right response and not necessarily tip off the attacker. Whereas if you tipped off the attacker, they may actually retool or get embedded deeper in your organization and harder to find. After that is done, we typically will have a condition, and the condition may drive you to further human analysis, or we may close it depending on the extent of what we found. So that's just one example of how we actually take and orchestrate with security knowledge different. The second example is really focusing on these red blocks a little, so I want you to take a look at those. Most people will take a FireEye alert and they'll look at the MD5 or the URL, and they like automated actions such as updating a firewall or updating a proxy. They do this for blocking reasons. The issue with an automated blocking rule, besides possibly tipping off the attacker, is that also your blocking appliances may not always understand the same context and also have challenge with sometimes large URLs that attackers use. If you've never seen that, you can actually denial a service a proxy in some cases, or in some cases like a firewall, you may actually block an entire site that your entire user population needs to access. Again, tipping off the advanced attacker is probably more important if it's an advanced attack. So instead of what we recommend of blocking these 2 events automatically, what we would typically do from a FireEye perspective is when you get this type of firewall alerts and you've been able to figure out from the context that it's an advanced attacker, what we like to do is actually take that data, reach down into a different course of action after a little bit of review, and do a pivot action. Now, this pivot action allows us to do further investigation and actually consolidate the entire list of URLs or MD5s that may be associated with that advanced attacker. So instead of blocking every single one, tipping them off, or actually spending your time managing the firewall rule set, which goes against the principle of orchestration, our goal is to actually get the total amount of data, execute a course of action that actually all kicks out the attacker at once. So for example, you push the proxy block, you push the Active Directory account disable, you push your NAC rules to push hosts off, or you contain them at the endpoint. This way the attacker, an advanced attacker, is actually kicked out of the network. You've done a good portion of the remediation. You can finish the remediation, therefore they have not retooled, and now you can go on a proactive watch to see if they come back into the organization. So these are just two simple examples of how we deal with orchestration. Very security context, very security minded. I just like to stress, we have lots of plugins. We have 100+ courses of action. The key difference is FireEye provides security, intelligence, and knowledge behind our courses of action to make sure we're dealing with advanced attackers, commoditized solution, and standard security problems. For more information, reach out to FireEye.com.